Hello lovelies, how are you all doing today? I hope you're well. Gosh, oh careful where I wriggle my bottom to. Oh, sorry Rusty. It's warm, it's really quite warm. Bit of a surprise, and really bright, which is going to cause shadow issues, but we don't care because it's lovely and bright and sunny and warm. Yay! It's the beginning of May. I'm just going to double check. I think it's May the 3rd today. You're not going to see this for a couple of days. But yeah, I'm back on schedule to do my tours at the beginning of the month. It sort of makes more sense for me because it's like, right, here we are at the beginning of the month. What needs doing? Da da da. Poor little Rusty. I'm glad he's in the shed and quiet. He's obviously been in a fight. Looks like a bad one. He's obviously caught the worst. Well, I assume he's caught the worst of it. Oh, his left cheek is gouged. Poor little fella. I hope his owners are putting cream on it. Anyway, gosh, I'm digressing already. Yes, so here we are at the beginning of May. Now, the last tour, quickly, we're not going to spend long in the shed today. We want to get in the garden. The last tour was only 3 weeks ago, so can you manage, sweet pea? Oh, it's a long way down for an old puss, isn't it? It was only 3 weeks ago, so it's not a huge amount of change, but I'm getting there. So, and I wrote a couple of numbers down last night because I was trying to work things out. 3 weeks ago, I had 13 beds that I needed still to prepare. I now have 7 beds. So yeah, 5 beds haven't been done. But actually, it's been mostly in the last week and a bit, because even then, sort of like on 10th, 11th of April, I was still being really careful with my back. So there's still beds that need to be prepared. But in the meantime, I've got my first 2 crops in the ground since that last video, which is great. So let's go and show you those now. And I just thought a quick word, because folk often ask me about this in terms of, I know there's loads of people have messaged me or comments or whatever to say they're feeling really behind this year for one reason or another. I think there's quite a few of you out there who've had injuries. Honestly, we're so clumsy, a lot of us, aren't we? You know, hurt backs, hurt wrists, hurt ankles. So you're feeling behind. Other folk, you've been dealing with life events and you feel behind. So I'm going to tell you what I do and how I cope, and hopefully that might be something that you can do for yourselves too. When I come here, so at this time of year, ideally I'd like to be able to come every day. That ain't going to happen. Ideally a minimum of 3 visits per week, 4 visits. Bearing in mind my visits are shorter. They're only about 4 hours these days, rather than doing a whole long day at the weekend or whatever. But yeah, so I come down 3 or 4 times a week. And when I come down, I have a very, very, very specific task to do each time. One of the things that's really easy to do is to arrive in the garden and be distracted and overwhelmed by looking at the thing as a whole and just thinking, I'm never going to get this done, I can't get this done, and you sort of give up and walk away. And the other thing, if you don't have a specific task in mind, is you can end up you pull a weed here, you pull a weed there, oh, that needs doing, and you start to sort of just meander around, and it's like, well, you're sort of looking at the jobs that need to be done, but not doing them. I mean, I think it's useful to have a session, but maybe give yourself a time limit on it of an hour, of going around the garden with a notebook and making a note of every single job that needs doing. Big jobs, little jobs. But otherwise, don't come to the garden without knowing what you're going to do. Or this is how I do it anyway, without knowing what I'm going to do. Because otherwise I get distracted, I get overwhelmed and just don't get anything done. So I come down, I give myself one big job. So this time of year, that's obviously preparing beds. So I will say to myself, right, so for instance, tomorrow, I know exactly what's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm tackling beds 1D, beds 1D and 3B. My 4 main beds are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and the little miniature beds within them are lettered A, B, C, D and E. And therefore, if I'm at home writing a quick note, I can write to myself, dig out bed 1D, dig out bed 3B. So when I come, I've got one big job, and that is to do one of my beds as bed prep. But then I have a list of the smaller jobs, and sometimes that might be just, you know, pruning rows, tying in tomatoes, doing a bit of seeding, whatever it is. So if after doing that big, horrible job, if I've got any energy, yeah, I'll do one of the little jobs, and that's nice. A little job at the end of the day, it's almost like a reward. But if I don't get the little job done, never mind, I got the big job done. So, and then there are also days when you saw in my, sorry, I've got something in my eye today, it's annoying me. You saw in my odd jobs in the garden video, there are days when I say, do you know what, I'm not doing any bed prep today, my knees have had enough, or my back's had enough, or I'm just bored of doing it. And so on those days, I'll go to my smaller jobs list, because smaller jobs can eventually become big jobs if they're not tackled at all. But I'll have a whole day of saying, right, I'm just going to do loads of small jobs. I'll do them in any order I fancy. Sometimes there's a logic to the order, but I'm just going to have a lovely day in the garden doing odd jobs, the little jobs. I'll bring myself a packed lunch. I won't do it in any kind of hurry. And it just feels like such a lovely day after the hard work days. Anyway, that's what I do. I come to the garden, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I stay focused and I get it done. Of course, sometimes one turns up at the garden and something might have happened. I don't know, like, you know, if it's the day after a storm, it might be that I've come down thinking I'll do one job, but in the end I do a different job because I've got to do some repairs or whatever. You get the idea of what I'm saying. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go and see how the garden is looking on, I think it's the 3rd of May. Isn't that a happy sight in the sunshine? Oh, so lovely. They really are at their best at the moment. Gorgeous. I haven't seen a huge amount of bees out yet. Mind you, I have been hearing them in the rosemary and in the brassicas, so they are around. But yeah, happy days with that. Oh my goodness, can you see? It suddenly looks like, I mean, not in terms of growth, no, but the weather, it suddenly looks like summer. Right, yay, in this top bed. Yes, I have my onions in. Gosh, I can hardly see a thing with the brightness. These are the white onions. This is jet set. I'm going to come this way just so hopefully make filming easier for myself. These are the jet set. These went in, well, they've gone in the last 3 weeks, and can you see that against my hand? Look how much they've shot up already. Fantastic. Now the big thing at this time of year is, as beds get prepared, as the cardboard comes off and seeds go in, I start to have lots of bare soil. So it's sort of numero uno priority all the time now is mulch, mulch, mulch. So I mulched between the onions after the work party day, and then I've just done my own trim and trim of my sort of paths and edges, and gathered up as much of the clippings as I could to mulch now the outsides of the beds, and I've done a bit on that one too. But yeah, get this soil covered and keep it covered. Oh, I forgot to mention as well with the tree lily. Look how much growth that's put on in 3 weeks. They were snubby little nubs right at... Oh, and I've seen... I just saw a flash of red. And I thought it was a lily beetle. It's not, it's a ladybird. Hello, ladybird. Good, you stay there and then keep an eye out for aphids. Yeah, it's had a massive growth spurt. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 fairly good sized stems. There's a 5th one tucked through there. And then right around this side and down, you can't even see it. One of the ones that the slugs nibbled on, it just never recovered, so it didn't come. But I'm happy with 5 healthy looking stalks, 3 of which, 3 biggest ones, I reckon they're going to give me some lovely flowers. Yay and hooray. Oh, that's always such a sight worth waiting for each year. It's usually sometime around about the 14th of July that these flower. Okay, good. Yeah, getting things in. I'm so relieved that I'm finally, I've got 2 beds planted so far over here. Yay. Planted and mulched. Really important. We're really, really not getting the rain at the moment. We had some showers late yesterday afternoon, early evening. They didn't amount to much. And yay, this is another bed that's ready. You can see how this was covered, so it wasn't too bad to get ready, and I've got it down to as fine a tilth as I can, because now I'm about to sow carrots and something else, which I'll show you on the day that I do it. Next door to it's going to be the courgettes. I haven't even sown the courgettes yet, so I thought, well, I might as well leave the chard in until the last minute, because it's the only leafy veg I've got access to at the moment, as all the brassicas have gone over. Now, a couple of the red ones at the front, they were trying to bolt. It is going to try and bolt soon. If you don't know what I mean by bolting, for those who are just starting gardening for the first time, it's when the plant starts to throw up a stem for a flower, and that flower eventually goes over and becomes seed. And you might think, oh, we'll leave it in there for seed for next year, but I need the space for the courgette. Might see if I can leave one in and work around it. But yeah, they're staying in for now because I can keep harvesting. It's a lovely, I think I say this every month, don't I? It's such a beautiful bit of colour in the garden. It's nice to have, look, put it this way, it's nice to have a little bit of fresh stuff to harvest while I'm waiting now for this new year's growing to start happening. So, nice fine tilth. Not so nice. Look at it. Okay, so this had the purple sprouting broccoli in, and literally all I've done is forked the plants out, and do you get an idea there? It's just boulders, and of course it's quite dry, so this will need a bit of going over in the next couple of days. This is my next job to do. Into here will go the fennel, and celery. Now, obviously with the celery I'll be planting little plants. In the past with fennel I've direct seeded, and that's been fine. But I'm actually going to sow the fennel seeds in modules this year. I just feel like over the last 2 or 3 years that the things I've sown in pots and modules, I've just had a little bit more control over them in terms of the slugs and just getting something, watering, all of that, than sowing in the open ground. I mean, I much prefer to sow direct, because you put it in the ground, you walk away, it's done, in theory. But then it's much harder to keep on top of the watering, all that kind of stuff. So maybe I'll do a bit of both, maybe a bit of direct and a bit of module sowing. We'll see. Next door, the garlic. Again, that day when I was talking about the work party and I raked up as much grass as possible, you can see that I added all of that to the mulch that was already on. I can't remember when I first mulched this bed. I think it might have been in March, and already that mulch was fast disappearing, so whack a load more on. The garlic, they look a little bit skinny. They'll do, and I'll be looking to harvest them towards the end of May. So this is one of the crops in the garden that I don't water now. I mean, firstly, there is moisture down there that they can get, but also I want them to start drying. And around about now, I've just spotted my first one. I wonder if I can show this to you. Put my hand there. Can you see this? This is what's called the scape. This is the garlic's flower head. I don't want the garlic to flower. I want to keep all the goodness and the energy in the bulb. So I'll just go around and I'll nip out all the scapes. Now, they're perfectly edible. People will rave about scape pesto. No, I don't bother making it because all the other ingredients are expensive. You know, some sort of nuts to add to it, parmesan, all those things. I know you could probably make it without. Look, I try not to in terms of using up like a sort of a free extra harvest, the scapes, I try not to use them in a way that would require me to buy extra ingredients, because it sort of defeats the purpose then. So quite simply, I sort of snip them up and chuck them in with a salad or such. Anyway, yeah, they look okay. They're not, when you look at the stems, the stalks, they're not the fattest I've ever seen. But we just don't know what's below, do we? Oh, I'm so tempted to... Wow, I don't know if you can make that out, but it's actually... Oh, it's so hard to make out with this light today. That soil is really quite moist when I compare it with, you know, these beds that aren't mulched. Mulch-tastic. Right, let's kick that back over. Oh. Okay, bed number 1. Good. Getting there. This in the next couple of days, what I hope is that this will be dug, that will be seeded, that the planting for that will come later. Now, this bed is always going to be the last bed that I tackle at this time of year, because this is the last plantings. This is all my vining tender stuff. So it's going to be squash, cukes and peppers, tomatoes. They won't go in till the beginning of June. So there's no desperate hurry. However, I do want to get on. So again, over the next couple of weeks or so, that's 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 beds to do. This one's done. And then under where the cavallo nero was, that's the ex-purple sprouting broccoli piled up for now. When I took it out, there were some bees buzzing around, so I've just laid it there for the bees to finish it off before I then chop it for compost. But yeah, nothing really much happening in this bed, and there won't be until, the bed prep will happen as we go through May. Something I did notice, and it's a perennial problem I have, my neighbour's raspberry here has once again, this is crazy this year, just get the nets off so you can see. Look, I now have, it's actually 3 stalks, 3 raspberries that I don't want. So yet again, as part of my bed prep, I will be digging down a couple of feet to try to get rid of most of that. It's just so blimmin' annoying every year that I'm having to do this, but never mind. It's not my neighbour's fault. They didn't plant this raspberry. It was their predecessor, planted too close to, look, here's our path. Fancy planting an invasive plant here. Of course it's going to go into my bed. Never mind. Oh, happy sight. Look at the broad beans. Morning, Rosie. She's already had cuddles. Happy sight of the broad beans. Now, I wonder if you can make this out. This is the X seam from my duvet cover. That was the top string, and they were just about here. So yeah, they've put on some growth in the last. You see where the string is down there, and they're now up here. So I've added a layer of string, and I think I'm going to have to add another layer. Fantastic. That's the ones on this side. And if you remember, the back 2 rows were looking distinctly pathetic. Well, actually, they're growing. Oh, look at you in the shade, Rosie. They are growing a bit, so you can see they're now up to the top, what was the top layer where my duvet seam is used as string. Look, these couple down here at the front, they're never going to do anything. Poor things. But the others, they have picked up. They've got flowers on them. If they've got flowers on them, that means I should eventually have pods on them. I still can't get over the difference between these 2 rows. Look. Down at the end, height difference. But yeah, I'm delighted with these front 2 rows. They're going great guns. And now, oh, right, yes. I was about to say, these tender tops. Yeah, there we go. Horrid. the first bit of black fly. I will be nipping that top out now. You can see the ants going around there farming those aphids. Yeah, I'll go through this whole lot when I put the camera down in a second, and I'll just nip out the tops. The great thing is, one of the reasons I advocate autumn sowing if you can, is that you've got a big enough plant where you can nip out the top and still have a good amount of plant. If you've got spring sown broad beans, they may only be half this size, and if you nip the top out, you're probably losing half the plant. So yeah, keep a lookout, folk. The black fly in the tender tips of your broad beans, get those tips nipped out pronto. If you can be bothered, you can wash all the aphids off and eat the lovely tips. Can I be bothered? I'm not sure. Actually, I might actually, because like I was just saying with the chard of not having fresh greens now all the brassicas are over. And what I want to show you, where can I show you one that's, I'm looking up, visible, is, hurrah, lovely pods forming. I mean, they are really coming fast now, these, like the plants as a whole. But the pods, I'm sure when I looked at these the other day, I put a photograph on my Instagram too, and they weren't anywhere near that size. And you can see how, here we are at different stages. Let me try to point out. This is a flower that looks kind of like it's dead or dying. It is. And as we go down, you can see where the flowers first came. Look, that little pod that's formed behind the flower. Doesn't look much, does it? And then as we go down the plant to the very first flowers, a much bigger pod. So also it's a note for when harvesting, and when you start to see your pods, keep an eye on the bottom ones first. Oh, and it's, keep a close eye, because hopefully you have a nice bushy patch like this where you can't necessarily see the bottom ones. Get right down there and harvest from the bottom first, because they were the first pods to develop. You look at one down there like that, and then you come up the plant a bit, and then look, teeny tiny ones in there. So yeah, harvest from the bottom, because they came first. Oh, I've got a head rush. Stood up, bent double. Please go and do some work on those black fly. Please, pretty please. Ah, yeah, look. You do have to look quite closely, and then the horribleness is revealed. And I don't want the ant on me either. Get off, ant. Yeah, priority job the minute I put the camera down. So the rest of this bed, like I was saying in this shed about my numbered beds and my priorities, bed 3B, because this whole bed is bed number 3. That's 3B. This is going to be after I've done that, the purple sprouting broccoli bed over there. This is going to be my next priority bed, to get this ready to receive some Coco de Paimpol sown direct. I'm going to sow some direct and some in pots. So that's, that I think is my two priorities. I've got this one and one in the next bed I'll show you. Essentially, these 3 squash bed are ready. They all had a bit of a tickle over, they were all weeded before I added the horse muck. All I need to do now is start to cover them in cardboard, and then when the time comes for planting, as I've done each year, I'll simply cut a hole in the cardboard. And obviously this cardboard is helping to retain the moisture whilst we're having, so far, quite a dry spring. So I just cut a hole in the cardboard, big enough to take the plant and the watering bottle, which I'll tuck down and under the plant. The other thing in this bed is weed the path. At the moment, coming back round this way, give you a view, you can see my paths. My paths are pretty weed free at the moment. I had quite a good go at them about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Well, some of them. And then this bed, because again it's one of the later, because it's squash, it's one of the later beds to get planted, I hadn't got round to, and you can see now how, you see in the path there, little clumps of grass happening. They won't take too long. They're the kind of grass clumps that they actually form quite a big clump. So once you've pulled it out, it makes a big difference. As in, it's not tons and tons of teeny tiny little individual blades of grass like that other grass that I tackled was the new to me weed in my garden. Okay, this is going to be the Parsnip and Calendula Bed. I've brought it down to a finer tilt now because parsnip seeds aren't big. I'm going to be doing some direct and some in loo rolls. That should be happening in the next couple of days. For now, just put the wire over it to stop the cats and foxes latrining in it. This bed I've prepared as well now. This is going to have rocking core and chickpeas, possibly the cocoa noir bush beans on the end. It's not a fine till, as you can see. I mean, it's pretty good considering it's my soil, but it doesn't really need to be any finer than that because the seeds I'm planting, they're actually quite big, robust seeds, so they'll be fine. So I'm delighted I've got that bed done. This bed is going to be for my salads, so chard, spinach, lettuce, etc. This bed is one that's yet to be done. Back to a done we'll come to in a second. So actually, walking backwards. In terms of, I was counting up the other day what's left to do in terms of bed prep. I've got 1, 2, right up to the top 3. They're my main ones I need to get done. And then 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've got 7 left to do. These 4 won't need doing until right at the end of May. I'll try and do them before then. But in other words, that one right at the top, and 2 and 3, they're the ones that I need to get done sort of now. Or at least in the next... Yeah, I'd like to have them done by mid-May. I'd like to have them done and sown by mid-May. So yeah, not too bad. Not looking too shabby. I was so happy. So happy to get my potatoes in. Oh, good grief. That was... Yeah, these beds were a bit naughty. What I'm going to do, what I'm going to try to do, should I say, is over the next few weeks, I mean, goodness knows where I'll get any material from. I'm going to be trying to get my hands on grass clippings and maybe some leaves. Oh! How did you get in there, little Rosie? Look, I'm growing a Rosie. Rosie, there's a brick on the end to stop you getting in. How did you get there, little girl? Ah, I see. Big hole there. She does like to be inside things, our little Rosie. I think it makes her sort of feel cosy and safe. Right, I digressed. Ah, that's how she got in. So, I want to get my hands on, over the next sort of 4 weeks or so, grass clippings, dryish. I don't want them too green because I'll get hot and slimy. Leaves, I wonder if I can go looking under any of the trees to see if there's any of last autumn's leaves left. Because what I'm thinking about doing is, as I'm earthing up, and do you remember I was saying how I'll pull the earth from these mounds over the planted potatoes. So the potatoes are planted down either side. The mound in the middle is for dragging over to cover the potatoes as they grow. And what I'm hoping to do is, when each time I do that, ideally I'd like to spread a layer of, like I said, dryish grass cuttings, leaves, whatever it is, so they get then covered in soil as well. I'm just hoping to add some organic matter to help break my clay up. If I can do that, I will. Right, oh, this is really exciting too, because it sort of symbolises, it's another big moment in the year each year. Let me bring you this way. The cold frame has got the shade netting on because the first of the babies that were born at home have made their way down here. Now, this is for hardening off, but actually I think they're going to be warmer in here than they were at home. So this is for her Uzen, that's the orange bell. They're the 4 orange bell that came first, and they're the ones I pinched the tops out of, and I've subsequently heard from someone else I really shouldn't have done because it is a tip-bearing pepper, so it may be that I get nothing from those this year. So yeah, I'm not pinching anymore. Now, with these, where they've been at home, they've been next to an open window, right next to an open window in my hallway. The window opens out on the north side of my property, and they've been fine. So actually, all these cool evenings, all the northeasterly wind we've had coming through, that's what they've been subjected to. So I'm thinking at the moment, I'll keep an eye on the weather forecast. I have checked, and it looks like all our evenings are now going to be 8 degrees centigrade or above, which is what these tender things really prefer. I'm thinking that I won't be closing the cold frame up at night, or I might close this window but leave the front ones open, because actually they've been in front of an open window at home all this time, and during April when it was a bit cooler. So these are my little test ones. Welcome to your new home. Welcome to the garden. Oh, it's a magical moment, isn't it, when the cold frame starts to get busy. We really know we're in another growing year then, don't we? Oh, I'm chuffed. I'm so happy about that. Hoopla. Coming around. Oh, I always think the rosemary looks so tatty when the flowers have gone over. Tatty, but oh, I wish I could give you this smell. I hold my hand out. Can you sniff? Lovely. Right, Agatha's pants hasn't died yet. I think it'll be fine. Oh yeah, so friends in New Zealand, I think there's been quite a few of you who've commented to me to say it's considered a bit of a weed in New Zealand, and one of you even said it's you call it a roundabout weed because it seems that every roundabout in New Zealand has been planted with them. Hopefully this little area will contain it. What a pretty weed though, hey? Now, things have settled down around here as well since I gave it a bit of attention, a bit of a tidy up. The honeysuckle and rose down there, they're getting light now. Can you see this? It looks like quite a bit of new growth up on the honeysuckle. A little bit on the rose. I can see some new leaves down there. Great. That verbena that I hacked right down to soil level. Those going mad already. Good. The crocosmia, they are sprouting. Good. I hope I get flowers this year. I just had foliage last year, but it was their first year last year, so that was fine. I did think I was going to stop harvesting the rhubarb now, let it rest, but I'm tempted to have 1 or 2 more leaves. Just 1 or 2. I keep an eye on it. This blueberry bush is looking lovely. Now, I didn't prune out as much as I probably ought to have done, but there was so much blossom on it I couldn't bear to. But it does need, in the middle, it needs a bit of thinning next spring. I've already, actually in the last few days, I've already identified which bits of wood are going to come out next spring, so I will do. But yeah, I'm looking forward to some nice berries again, and still a bit more blossom coming in. It's such a pretty little blossom, beautiful. Oh, look, there's masses. And I'll keep an eye out on this as these fruits start to develop, to go and get my tool out of the shed to throw over them to keep the birds off. The little overwintered pelargoniums, oh, they're enjoying this sunshine, yeah. They're looking grand, and I've got all those ones at home to bring down and pot up, which I shall in the next few days. It's all giddying up now. Ah yes, the Taunton Dean cuttings. I lost, one pot I lost completely. That one has been nibbled right away. That one's just about hanging in there. That one's just about hanging in there. I need to put a couple more pellets in that tray, I think. But otherwise, the ones that are, I think this one is looking fine. This one and this one. So it looks like I ought to end up with hopefully 3 sturdy little plants, which means 1 for me and then 2 to give away. Ah, yes. The great onion experiment of 2022. I've got those 3 there, and they need planting. I know exactly where they're going, and that's happening in the next couple of days as well. I'm pleased with how they look so far, and you know, I'll see how long it takes them to come to harvest. I will certainly try growing from seed again, but if I do it again next year, I'll do it exactly like I've always done leeks, and I didn't know why I didn't think to do it that way. Just do a mass sowing and then thin them out into individual modules once the actual seeds are up, because otherwise this was a waste of module space. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how they will bulk up over the summer and see how long it takes for them to sort of come to the stage of harvesting. It may be that it takes too long in my garden because of space, but yeah, so far I'm happy with those 4 that did make it. All 4 of them. But you know what, I don't mind that it's only 4, because it's more about seeing, you know, does it work? Will it work? Is it something I can replicate down the years? Is it something that I can replicate and rely on? We'll see. The experiment's still happening. Oh, the bee houses have been buzzing again in the last few days. I need to do some repairs on this one. And I need to clean a couple of the tubes out. Well, I think I need to probably clean all the tubes out at the end of the season. Oh, now this I'm delighted with. So, again, this was done about... Should I do this about 3 weeks ago? It's all in the last 3 weeks. At the back it's the sweet peas that just about managed to survive being in the cold frame and being neglected by me for 4 weeks when I was away with my bad back. They just about survived. So I've stuck them in here, and they're finally, you can see a few of them, this one, they're finally starting to get going. Great. So I think they were in a bit of shock, but they are, a few of them, growing. Now, at the same time, I had peas in the cold frame and they all died. They just dried and fried in the cold frame. We did have 2 weeks of really hot, sunny weather at the end of March. It killed them. So whilst I was here with the sweet peas, I thought, oh, what the heck? I've got a handful of the Rosa Crona peas, garden peas left. I might as well chuck them in here, which I did. And look, happy days. They're looking fab. Oh, such a lovely green, isn't it? I'm chuffed. So, oh, hang on, sorry, bending. Let's move it. I'm trying to give you an idea of how much they've grown. They've grown about sort of between 10 and 15 centimetres already. So I think, yeah, you know, we're definitely having happier temperatures. We're not getting rain. I'm keeping an eye on watering these things because they're in a bag. But yeah, chuffed. So it looks like I'll have a few pretty sweet pea flowers at the back, and a few, well, the Rosa Crona have pretty flowers too, but more's the point, a handful of peas to scoff. Oh, I just, every time, literally every time I look at this blossom, I think to myself, yum, yum, you are going to be fruit in my tum in, hopefully, oh, I can't remember how long they took to, to ripen last year. Oh, I can't wait. And then, lastly, the herb bed, which is going to be in a bit of disarray still, because I'm not going to do anything about replanting it until the vegetable garden is planted, frankly. And that's, like now, for the whole of May and the first couple of weeks of June, it is going to be crazy, manic busy with seeding, transplanting, pricking out, potting on, bringing to the cold frame, putting in the garden, you know the score, bean arches to put up, cucumber climbing frame to put up, all of that. Once that's all done and settled, I'll turn my attention to the herb garden and what I'm going to do to replace, you know, the missing lavender. But for now, well, you can see the two fabulous stalks of tree lily this year. Now, I planted it here, but they're coming up there. Is that another one I've got to move again this winter? We'll see. But behind it, the lovage this year is doing great. It's never even got to half this size before. It's been in there, what, 4 years now? And it's finally looking happy and getting going. I wonder if the lily has encouraged it. But I reckon I'm going to be harvesting from that. Fantastic. I was mentioning in another video, just in case you don't know or didn't see it, but lovage use it much as you would celery. So it's a great backup if your celery harvest fails. So I won't be harvesting it yet. I'll hopefully, my celery will do okay, but it's great to have it as the backup. Oh, and the beautiful chives. These are right on the cusp of flowering now. Look at all those, some of them have popped overnight. Great load of fat buds, beautiful fat buds. And they are, like I said, they're right. And, once they are fully open, the bees will love these. And it's great because, the dandelions are going over, the brassica flowers have almost finished. So this is another nice little bit of food as a follow-on for our beautiful bees. Hurrah, hurrah. I've got little clumps. Oh, you can see now how the plan was. I had clumps of chives between the lavenders. So I'd have the chive flowers coming before the lavender flowers, and then the lavender flowers would take over when the chives went. So I might lift the clumps down there. I might move them around a bit. Not sure yet. Sweet Sicily is flowering. Sweet Sicily really is a sweet little thing. Look at that. Oh, pretty, pretty, pretty. I had a load of bulbs down here. They've all been eaten. Grr. Never mind. This pot of marjoram, now what I'm thinking of doing is dividing it and using it, because it stays quite low, of having a clump right in the front to spread around a bit. Yeah, everything's a bit undecided, but it'll happen. This little clump of verbena that's coming back, I did have down here somewhere a bergamot, or as many of you will call it, a bee balm. It's disappeared. I think it's died. I don't know, it's just weird how this whole side of the herb bed, like so many things, died. Well, but the chives are okay. Yeah, so odd, so odd. This is my the sedums from Paul. I want to take them out of the trough and get them into the herb bed somewhere. But again, it will be a question of what else am I planting, bearing in mind what height they get to and the colour. So this one is white. That's by far my preference. This one is the pink, which I'm not so keen on. But it's a tricky kind of pink. It's that kind of pink that you have to be really careful what you put it with. So they can stay in there for now, and then once I've decided how to plant this bed up, how to fill it up again, I can decide where to pop it. But yeah, I was thinking with that, do a division of the marjoram to pop down here in the front of the herb bed somewhere. Oh, these pretty, pretty little Battleini tulip are past their best now, but oh, they've been beautiful. I absolutely adore this colour. I'm not a huge fan of yellow, but I love this sort of pale buttery yellow. Gorgeous. The other day I took a photograph of them in the late afternoon, sort of 5 o'clock or so. It was a really grey, overcast, gloomy day. And these pretty wee things almost seem to be glowing. Gorgeous. Right, and that rhubarb I have stopped harvesting from now to let it recover. Don't forget, keep your insect drinking stations topped up. It's weird, we haven't been particularly hot, warm in the last couple of weeks, but it's just this wind and the dryness. Yeah, our little insect friends and our bird friends, we do need to keep thinking about where they're going to get their water from. Ooh, I'm boiling suddenly. So, do you know what? It's not looking too bad, is it? I mean, don't get me wrong, I look at it and I know that there's a lot of work to do. This really is the big push at this time of year for us all, isn't it? Through May, to complete our bed work, to get all our seeds sown, whether it's in the ground or in pots and modules, however we do it. Get our structures up, and then come about, I'm hoping in about 6 weeks' time, 5 weeks maybe, the whole garden will be seeded, it'll all be planted up, it'll be time to have a bit of a rest, and it will be time to get the deck chair out. Yay, just in time for Roland Garros. Oh my goodness, I don't get the deck, you know, you might think, why get your deck chair out now, Vivi, it's a lovely day. There's no point, because this deck is going to be, hopefully, in the next week or so, it is going to be full of pots and trays and modules, and the cold frame will be as well, and eventually I use the path and the herb bed as well. It'll be chock-a-block with plants getting away, waiting to get to their eventual home in my garden. Oh, I'm so lucky to have this, aren't I? I am so lucky. I never ever take it for granted. Happy days. Right, I'm going to say cheerio to all of you, and I'm going to go and tend to the black fly in my broad beans. So until the next time, please look after yourselves and keep looking out for the pesty black fly and nip them. Nip the little beggars. Bye for now, everyone.